1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 1. And Samuel said to Saul, "The Lord sent me to anoint you king over his people Israel. Now therefore listen to the words of the Lord. Thus says the Lord of hosts, I have noted what Amalek did to Israel in opposing them on the way when they came up out of Egypt. Now go and strike Amalek and devote to destruction all that they have. Do not spare them, but kill both man and woman, child and infant." So a lot has been said to try to justify such actions as God's part in the Bible. And I find that a lot of the answers given, while attempting to appeal to the intellect, never fully satisfy the heart. And yet people are quick to accept such answers, even at the cost of denying a part of themselves. And I think one reason for this, one thing that makes this so easy, is how far removed we are from the situation. We read stories like 1 Samuel 15, and they're just stories. The carnage, the horror, the violence, the blood, the suffering, the pain is not real to us. And the further removed we are from a situation, the easier it is to accept such intellectual rationalizations. But I have a question that I like to pose to Christians as a way of helping to get to the heart aspect of passages like 1 Samuel 15. And the question is this. Imagine yourself, an Israelite soldier ready for battle. Your armor rattles, your nerves a mess. The certain death awaiting what lies ahead or a more blessed state. Yahweh, guide my steps, you pray under your breath, marching forth to a city known as Amalek. In the midst of God's army, ready for war. It's not pretty, but as Yahweh's chosen people, you have an obligation to cleanse the land of evil. So duty calls. At the head of the formation is King Saul, with the prophet Samuel at his right hand, a righteous cause, a people dedicated to God's righteous laws. Surely victory awaits, the troops advance, guided by divine hands. Yahweh's instrument of judgment, the sword on your waist, his to command. And sometimes divine plan demands action, a just response to man's actions. Rebellion against the judge of the earth gets exactly what it deserves. So you march on, knowing the bloodshed ahead is necessary, as Yahweh's faithful emissaries to bring wrath, to stand for what's true. And as you listen to the sound of 200,000 troops, you imagine it as a song of praise, lifted up to the God of Abraham. Yes, your heart ignites as you realize warfare can be a form of worship. This thought serves to further solidify your sense of purpose. Suddenly from up front, you hear the command, halt. In the distance, you see the walls of a city. This must be Amalek. The city gate is shut. Your heart rate is up as your commander paces up and down the line to inspect the ranks. You hold your shield close, one hand over your heart, cause underneath your breastplate is hidden a lock of hair your daughter gave you before this mission. Something to remember me by, she told you between cries. You pray, Yahweh, let me survive another day so I can see those eyes. Across the valley, soldiers for God take position. King Saul standing tall at the head of the army, ready to address the troops. The prophet Samuel serves as visible proof of God's presence. You await instructions. Everyone goes quiet. No one speaks a word. As the king begins, today is the day when justice will be served. Now go and strike Amalek, devoted to destruction. As an offering to God, you are a priestly people, and this is your priestly function. And faithfulness to Yahweh, kill man, woman, and child. Even infants must pay. Whoa, what did he say? You're kind of taken aback. What could a nursing infant have to do with God's wrath? And what could a little child have done to deserve that? Is this what God demands? With your hand over your heart, thinking on this divine plan, you wonder if you can bring yourself to carry out this command. Thinking of your daughter's face, you find it hard to think straight. But God is God, so who am I to question? Sovereign King of the earth, forgive my transgression. Then in the middle of this silent confession, the trumpet sounds, the troops step off, marching straight for the city walls, yelling out, God is great. The pace picks up, now within range of archers on the wall. The guy beside you falls, you keep running. The front rank arrives, ladders go up. Once inside, you issue a war cry. For the glory of Yahweh, as you unsheath your sword. So begins the fight. Each Amalekite you kill, a righteous sacrifice in God's sight. The lifeless bodies of pagan priests and enemy soldiers, proclaiming God's superiority over this whole place. You press on. Up ahead, a row of houses seems deserted. but cautiously you move from house to house to make certain the first one is empty. So moving on to the next, you find something in a room that you didn't expect. A young mother clutching an infant to her chest. Of all the things you've seen that day, this is the most fearful. A test you unconsciously hoped you'd be spared from. The terror in this woman's eyes for what she knows must happen couldn't match the terror inside. How can this be justified? Meanwhile, the baby just nurses at mommy's breast in blissful ignorance. Her eyes catch a glimpse of this stranger in the room, and when a little hand reaches up for you, you couldn't help but wince. Hair the same jet black color as your little girl. It even has the same type of little curls. None of this makes sense, but your mind goes back to the fact that all people are sinful and deserve God's wrath. As a nation, Israel falls under God's grace, but Amalek remains subject to God's hate, including this little child. Death is what she deserves. But somehow, here and now, theology doesn't work. This test of faith seems so cruel. Your mind rationalizing what your heart just can't compute. Just remember who you are, and most of all, who God is. Let your sword faithfully represent His holiness. Then the woman speaks up. Her voice is real shaky. She says, "Kill me, but please have mercy on my baby." But King Saul's words were clear. Spare none, so how could you give in to this woman's tears? The baby must die if you're to remain faithful. But looking at this helpless child, just not sure that you're able. So do you follow your heart or to Yahweh stay true? Here's the question, Christian. If it was you, what would you do?